Hello, folks. This is Anthony from Honda Snowblower Enthusiast. How do you like my hat? Honda Snowblower Enthusiast. Anyways, thank you very much for all the nice comments, for subscribing to the channel. Today, it's going to be part two on the impeller kit installation. Part one was just basic information on what you need, what tools you need, etc., why you need one. If your Honda is clogging, not throwing snow very far, then an impeller kit can make a huge difference. So I'm going to show that. I'm going to show you what others do, what the kit is, the different sizes, and how I do it, because I service the augers also. Since you're going to all the trouble in the off season to put an impeller kit in, it doesn't really take much longer. I tried doing it the way others do it. I highly recommend you watch some other videos and see which way you want to go. I tried it this way with the everything inside the machine here. Just take the chute off. You have to block the impeller, drill your holes, and do it that way. And it took me a long time. I don't. They make it look so easy. If you got an older machine like a 50, 55, or an 80, you can't take the augers out without removing the bucket. And if you're removing the bucket to change the impeller bearing, then you might as well take everything out and do it that way. But if you want to do it on a older machine, it's got 4 fans instead of just 3, and the kits only come with 3 paddles and hardware for 3. So you'd have to make another paddle. But anyways, I tried doing it this way, and it's just such a pain. I was thinking, man, this is just too much trouble. I watched all the videos. I must have watched 10 hours, and it seemed like an awful lot of trouble to do it with the augers in the machine. And we talked about this in a previous video. I'm going to post links to the end of this video on the part one on the impeller installation, and I'm also going to post a link to servicing the augers. And let me just recap that really, really quick. You take out your impeller bolt shear pin down here. Then you take your bolts out on the side on both sides. And if you have a bracket, then pull those 2 bolts out. And then it just pulls right out. So I did this beforehand so it saves time. And the reason why I highly recommend you servicing these augers is because you can prevent something like this happening. I saw this about 5 or 6 times this past winter. What happens is that the auger shafts get full of rust, and then the auger gearbox shaft gets stuck in there, and you hit a rock or something, and the shear pin's going to be no good anyways. So something's got to give, and it's going to be your auger gearbox over there. So what I do is you can clean these out and put some lubricating oil, cleaning them out with a 7/8 inch brush. Or I do so many. I use this boring brush on my drill. So you can just do this. You put it in there in the hole, and you can clean out. And not necessarily do you have to weld up the holes. These are not too bad. You can see they're a little bit egg-shaped. When they get really bad, you start breaking a lot of shear pins. So I just weld up the bad part here, and drill the hole out, and then I got good holes in there. And then when I'm done doing all that, I put anti-seize grease on these shafts. I clean the shafts with steel wool or a wire brush, wire wheel on my drill, and then slap on some anti-seize grease. And once you do that, you just put it all back together, stick them back in here. After you put the kit in, you can take the impeller out like this, and then you can put it in the vise like I have one over here. Now, if you buy a kit on Amazon for the HS models, these backing plates for this is a 624 or 724, they're too long. So you gotta grind them down on both sides a little bit. You know, it takes a little bit. You grind down both sides. Otherwise, they fit on all the other machines, the 828s, 9s, 11s, 13s. HSS models have a specific kit. And like I said in part one, if you're just going to do this on one machine, buy the kit. Buy the kit on Amazon or eBay. Impeller kit for HSS or HS. Nines, eights, nines, whatever. I make so many. I've done so many of these that I make my own kits. Well, another thing you can do really quick. This is your side bearings that go in here, right over on the other side of this. You can use a pick and take this rubber seal off, and you can repack it. You can check it first, make sure it spins okay. It doesn't feel like marbles or whatever. Otherwise, replace it. It's a 6203 2RS bearing. And you can take the rubber seal off and you can repack it with grease if you want to. I pull them off, check and put some grease in there. As long as it spins without any kind of resistance or whatever, and the race is nice and tight, then you're good to go. Now, another reason why I like taking the augers out is that here's your impeller bearings on the other side here. This is the keeper that keeps your bearing in. It's got 3 bolts. And you can inspect your bearing. I got a bunch of anti-seize grease on this right now. But you can poke it with a screwdriver or something and see if there's any play, if the race is moving in and out. The race is the inside, this part right here. That's the race. If this moves on you, then you know the bearing's going bad. And it's kind of easy to check the bearing with the augers out. And in that case, you're going to have to take the bucket off and change the bearing. The bearing is a 6004 2RS, and then you can change your belts if needed too. But anyways, that's another good reason why I take the time. It sounds like a lot of work, but it really isn't. You can do it with everything in the machine. If you block the blower and drill the holes using an extension or a 12-inch 1/4 inch. This is like an 12-inch extension. This is a 1/4 inch HSS drill bit. But you can do it that way, and to me, it was a real pain. It took me like 3 hours. And to do it the way I do it, you get twice the work done, servicing your augers, putting in new shear pins, making sure they're good to go for another 10 or 15 years or whatever. I don't know how long. I already showed you in part one how you can test this. You just, with the augers installed, you can pull the shear pin and see if your augers spin freely. Then you know you're good. And I don't know how long it would last with new grease, but probably pretty long time. I've seen blowers from the factory. Most people never service these. 15, 20 years, they'll still spin, if they're kept indoors in the garage or whatever. Or you take off the side bolt and spray a bunch of lubricating fluid in there to keep the shafts lubricated. But most people don't do that. So after about 15 or 20 years or so, these will get stuck, and then you end up breaking your, if you catch something big in your blower, you end up breaking. This is like a $300 repair. So I can do this. I can do all this in about an hour and a half. I take my time. Sometimes it takes longer. I've done so many, 40 or 50 of these, so I'm pretty good at it now. But when I first started doing it, I think it probably took me like 2 or 3 hours. I can do it for anybody, in the Truckee area, to like Tahoe area. If anybody wants me to do all this for them, I can do it. I only do a couple for people, friends and neighbors, members of the group, etc. But anyways, let me get on to doing the actual kit. Okay, I already told you, get the kit on eBay or Amazon. If I take the impeller out, I put it in a vise. Okay, here's your backing plate. You put your backing plate almost to the edge. And then once you get it on the edge, I don't know if it's going to stay. I use a punch. Put the punch in the hole and try to get it in the center of the hole and make a punch. And then make sure you line this back up so this is correct. This punch mark is in the center of this hole, and then you can punch the other hole. Say you want accurate holes because of this backing plate. So if you look really closely here, you can see the punch mark that I made, and then I started drilling this hole. I used some cutting oil uh, to facilitate in the drilling. Otherwise, I drill so many holes, I want my drill bits to last. You want to do it very slowly. You don't want to do it too fast. The drill bit will get hot, and you'll wear out the drill bit. So I do it slow. I'm not putting any pressure on it, so it's not cutting. And then I put some more cutting oil on it, as it gets deeper, and then I do it. It takes about, I don't know, it takes me about 30 seconds, maybe a minute at the most to do one hole. Once you get your hole done, then you can drill the holes in your rubber paddles. Now, how you do this, I've done so many of these, I can do it by sight, actually. I know exactly where it is. But the first time doing it, you want to put the impeller in the drum here. This is the drum. And you put the paddle on the fan, and you put it up against the drum. And then you take a marker, like a scribe or something, and you mark the underside of the I don't know if you can see it on here. Can you see that? See how I made a mark there? So that's that's where where I'm gonna put the paddle on the edge here. See, right there. So I line that up, and then I take my drill and I drill up. I drill up into the holes to the rubber paddle. Just make a mark. Just make a couple marks, and then you can drill. You can drill the rest of the hole on a table or something. If you really, I just drill the holes, but some people like to make these elongate holes like this. That way you can adjust them. You can loosen up the nuts and bolts and adjust them. I used to do that, and it's pretty good idea, but it's just easier for me to drill the holes. If I have to replace the rubber paddle sometime in the future, then I just replace it. But this is a good way to get a really good seal. You can loosen it up, push it up against the drum, and you get a nice tight seal. Let me think here. This drum is not a perfect circle, So in some places it's going to be scraping, and in other places it might be away from the drum about a millimeter or so. You might see it just a tiny bit of daylight, but don't sweat it. The whole goal here is to get a close seal so that you won't clog so much, and you're going to throw the snow farther. Now let me show you this. I already did one one paddle. See, here's the nuts and bolts, stainless steel. You see, here's my paddle, my rubber paddle right here. And then when I get done with one, let me loosen this out and take it off. Of course. Well, anyways, when you've done one paddle, then you can put it in, and you can see it, scraping. You can see it scraping against the drum. If it's too much, if you got too much rubber sticking out, it's not going to go in. It might be a tight fit at first. I'll show you how to break it in without destroying the paddles. But it's going to be a little bit tight, but this is okay. You don't want the rubber paddle dragging. See, here's the backing plate, and here the nuts and bolts. So you do the other two paddles the same way, and then when you're ready, when you're all done putting the paddles in, then you can install the impeller. I'm having a hard time because I don't have a bearing in there, so it's not lined up right. I just did this for demonstration purposes. Let's see if I can get it now. Okay, so when you've got all the three paddles done, it's going to be a little bit tight, which is normal. But you don't want to have it so tight that you really, really have to force it on. You don't want it dragging too much. If it drags too much, the first time you use it, the snowblower is going to stall. It's just not going to turn. It's going to get stuck, and it's going to stall on you. Ask me how I know. I've made every single mistake you can make on doing one of these impeller kits. So I've learned the hard way so that you guys don't have to. So if it's too tight, then you can shave off a little bit. You can use an angle grinder like this one, cheapo from Harbor Freight. Cheapo angle drill with a flap disc on it. I don't know what the grit this is. I get all different types of grits. But you can shave off a little bit of the paddle, or you can cut it off. You want to be careful about cutting it off, because if you cut off too much, then you just ruin the ability of the paddle to create the seal. So what I do is I shave off a little bit. Maybe you can, if you don't have one of those angle grinders, you can figure out a way to shave a little bit off at a time. Trial and error, and then once you've got it on, you want to make sure that it spins okay. There's going to be a little bit of resistance because it may be tight, and you want it a little bit. You want a little bit of resistance. I'll show you how to break it in properly. But once you've got the impeller in there, you put your impeller shear pin in, okay? So you got your what did I do with that other? Yeah. Let's say this already got the kit on it, okay? So you put your impeller in there with your kit on it. You put your impeller bolt in there, and then you put a little bit of grease in here, some anti-seize grease, and then you can install your augers and everything. It takes a little bit longer to install them. I mean, it's easy. When I say something's easy, it's easy to take them out. I showed you how to take them out. It takes 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. You can take them out. To put them back in, it takes a little bit longer, because you gotta try to you got to line up this hole here. This hole, you have to line up with this hole. And what I use is a small short screwdriver to line them up good. Excuse me. And then when you've lined them up, then you can install the hardware bolt. This is not a shear pin. It's a hardware bolt. So what I do is I install the augers. Okay, here's the end. Here's the end of the augers. Okay, you just start a couple bolts on each side, and then once you've started the bolts, you can put your bolt in here. You put this bolt in here, your hardware bolt. Tighten it down pretty good. If you got a bracket, just start your bolts. Don't tighten them all yet. Start everything, and then make sure that everything's lined up properly, nice and centered on the end bolt here. And then you can tighten up everything, and then tighten these up. And that's how you put your impeller kit in there. To break it in, what you want to do is I use fluid film, but you can use any kind of lubricating oil. Put some lubricating oil in your drum here, fluid film or snow jet or just anything. WD-40 will work. You just want to break in your kit. So to break in your kit, you start your engine. I can't start this. I don't think I can start it, but this is one of my project machines. But you start your engine, let it warm up a little bit, and then just slowly pull down your auger handle. That will engage your impeller. And if you're I've learned the hard way. I put my paddles in too tight. I forced the impeller in. I put the paddles in too tight, and then when I did this, the engine kept on stalling. But if you did what I said, you put the impeller in, and you make sure it turns, even if there's a little bit of resistance. It needs to be broken in. You slowly pull your auger handle down, and let the impeller go slowly at first. Okay, that will wear in the paddles. You do that for a few seconds, and if it sounds good, then you do it more and more and more. You do it at an idle, and then you can do it at fast throttle. It only takes about 30 seconds to break it in. You might see some bits of rubber flying out of here, but don't get concerned. It's almost impossible to put in the kit perfectly, because like I said, the drum the drum is not a perfect circle. So in some places, the pads are going to be hitting harder in some places than others. So when you're breaking it in, you're scraping the excess off, and you want to do it slowly at first, and then go to full speed. Run it for about 30 seconds, and then you're broke in. So that's how you do an impeller kit. I try to save a lot of time by just going step by step without actually doing it, because if I actually did everything, it would take a lot longer to show you. If you have any questions or you do it a different way, post it in the comments. Or if you have any questions or suggestions, post it in the comments. The description in part one, I put all the dimensions for everything if you want to make your own kit. Here's the hardware. You want to use stainless steel hardware, nuts and bolts. But at the end of the video, I'll have a link to go to part one if you haven't seen that already. And I'll have a link to servicing the augers if you want to do that also. But otherwise, I highly recommend you watch some other videos and get a good idea on which way you want to go. You might want to try this method here and block the fans and everything, and use self-tapping screws, and put your homemade pads in there or whatever. So it's really up to you. I'm just trying to show you what I do. I've done this 40 or 50 times. It doesn't take me very long because I've done so many. But that's pretty much it, folks. I really appreciate you watching these videos and subscribing, and I will see you next time. Have a great day.